So welcome, Dr. Paul Vixie.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So for our listeners and viewers, Internet Hall of Famer, the founder of DNS and CEO of Farsight Security. All right?
Someone else created DNS. I'm its godfather, not its father.
Okay. So let's start with SIE Europe.
Okay.
Now, for the viewers, if you can explain the reason behind why SIE Europe was started and the genesis behind data aggregation and data distribution with a purpose which is altruistic in nature.
Oh, okay, it's a tall order. So we have been running a passive DNS collection and sharing network. Some team of mine has been doing that since about 2008. The concept of passive DNS comes from Florian Weimar's work at Uni Stuttgart 2004, so we're not its originator, but I think we have taken it and run with it further than anyone else has. So Europe has been a good place to find sensor operators. The idea that you have to cooperate with people somewhat loosely in order to, make the whole system safer is pretty uncontroversial there. Right here, somebody might call you a socialist if you want to have a fire department, let's say.
Yeah.
But in Europe, this kind of thing is normal. But GDPR changed everything. And when GDPR was coming down the pike, our network growth in Europe stopped. Not because people thought it was a problem, but because they didn't know yet that it wasn't a problem. So
Yep.
they got very sort of risk averse. And we responded to that by creating a local organization. It's incorporated and headquartered in Germany, which has the strongest national privacy law, much stronger than GDPR, for example. So that we can make the point that if what we were doing was illegal, the Germans would stop us. And on that basis, our growth is back to normal. We're starting to see people look at this and say, I can give a little, I can run a sensor, put my data into the pot, and in exchange I get to see what everybody else puts in the pot. And it's just the more observation you have of a given attack or metadata, then the more likely it is to, if it's a crime, to be solved. And there's no way to buy this data. It's a totally non-profit endeavor, but it is the case that if you give us what you have, we will give you back what we've seen. And so far, everybody's giving us high marks for both the transparency and the usefulness.
So pushing this forward across the Atlantic, right, and coming into the US, two questions. One is, clearly there are regulations, probably not as stringent as GDPR, but trying to get there with things like CCPA and in Nevada and so forth. But also, do you see a cultural awakening inside the US which allows for something like SIE Europe to make its way across the pond?
Well, to be clear, we started here, and this is the biggest part of our network. We've been doing it here the longest. And generally, the national privacy law in the US has been pretty weak, right? We have now California privacy law, and we're waiting to see if that can possibly cause the feds to come up with a privacy law. I'd like to see that happen. I think GDPR and CCPA are good law and will result in a stronger economy. But our model has been that we never collect end-user IP information, so we try to avoid anything that could be used or reconstituted into personally identifiable information. So they can make these laws as strong as they want, and I'm not going to worry about them.
So switching gears a little bit, and I go back to a LinkedIn article that we talked about last time we met, which still resonates so much with me, and I'm going to put that into context for our viewers, which is really the 6 questions that you need to know and you need to ask. The first one is, what do I need to know? What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And then the other side, what do you need to know? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? So given where we are today, right? I mean, this is a level of self-awareness and almost evolution if you continuously ask these questions of yourself and your customers and your partners. So what the question really comes down to, given that we are at RSA 2020 right now, there is all the sense of hubris, a sense of going through the noise and out maneuvering, out marketing everybody else. Some sense of how these 6 questions and what example have you seen of companies and individuals who've been able to ask this question come out better as a result of that?
Well, of course, anything can be ruined if you dump enough money into it. If you heat something up enough, you'll burn it. So I'm sure that there is such thing as too much clarity and too much transparency between partners or between family members, husband, wife, father, son. Those 6 questions were developed really in a management context where you might be responsible for somebody's success, and you're just trying to open the floodgates a little bit and what have you given up complaining about, right, that I don't remember anymore, and I don't see it missing.
Yep.
But you still remember that we are lacking clarity on a certain issue. The point of those 6 questions is to create some constructive vulnerability for both parties where it's safe to speak. Because most of the time we end up in an equilibrium where, all right, if I continue to stonewall on that topic, I won't have to talk about it, and that is not constructive. But the idea of constructive vulnerability with your, let's say, customers is much harder to get, right? Because they know in the end of the day, you're probably more responsible to your shareholders than to your customers. That may be a matter of law. And so there are going to be some things they might not want to open up about, or some things they know you're not going to open up about. So I do the best I can, but I have to be realistic. What we're really doing is, what is it you want to yell at me about that you've already done it, but I didn't appear to respond. But a lot of the companies represented here have got thousands, or even in the case of social mobile strategies, they might have millions or hundreds of millions. They're not going to get to know them personally, and there's never going to be constructive vulnerability at that scale.
So I haven't heard the word constructive vulnerability in a while. So question again is, clearly there is an opt-in for employees of certain organizations who want to be there. And I use Tesla as an example. I've talked to enough employees who are there for a mission. Now, love Elon Musk or hate Elon Musk doesn't matter, but I haven't seen an unhappy Tesla employee. Either you're there or you're out. Cybersecurity, again, from a practitioner's, I've had the privilege of talking to about 25, 30 CISOs, and they're in it because they want to be in it. From a vendor perspective, have you seen examples of where a cultural awakening is happening, so people actually opt in to want to be part of Farsight and other companies because there's a mission behind it, right? And if so, what drives people to want to be part of that culture?
Well, there is understandable suspicion about me, since I have been an activist in so many ways for so many years, that I might be misusing my position at Farsight to change the world in a way that neither the customers nor the shareholders nor the employees necessarily care about. And so they watch me very closely to be sure I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't mind if they're doing that, right? If somebody has a choice of working with us and working on data aggregation that respects privacy versus maybe working somewhere else, Silicon Valley or elsewhere, that's in the surveillance capitalism empire, and working on data aggregation that is kind of intended to pierce the veil and make sure that you've got a buy now button everywhere you look, I like offering them that choice. I like making it very clear that if you help us succeed, you will not create a world that you're going to hate living in. Whereas more and more I'm seeing ex-employees of Google, Meredith Whittaker in particular, who used to be both drinking and selling the Kool-Aid, who are now saying, wait, stop, AI is going to take over the world if we don't do something. Well, you know, that was an awakening within Google for a lot of their early employees who didn't realize that if they helped Google to succeed, that was going to cause all of them and their children and their friends to be less able to have whispered conversations or to have associations that weren't on record. And so I'm enjoying watching that generation grow up, but I'm afraid they're followed closely by another generation who will have to learn that lesson in their own time.
So one final question. We are at the fag end of RSA, or maybe towards the second half of the conference. What is one surprising thing that you have seen at the conference, if any, and what's one belief that got reinforced?
So I'm not down there in our booth checking the flow and feeling the pulse of the audience, but I will say that this is surprising that a number of people did come in spite of the coronavirus fears, but a lot of people didn't. And so it isn't the crushing, overwhelming noise and shouting your messages across that would be typical. So I know that we'll be back to normal next year, but right now I'm really kind of enjoying the fact that you can have a conversation with somebody, because there are probably more people in the booths than there are in the aisles right now. And that may not be good for RSA's business, but it's very good for the people who are here exhibiting, very good for the people who are here to see things. But as far as the reinforcement, I would say I had 20 people attend my talk because I was the first thing after the keynotes. And I think a lot of people are not going to race upstairs after the keynotes end. But the people that were there were interested. They stopped me in the aisles on my way out of the room. They wanted to know more. And so I'm seeing that this audience continues to be full of people who either think they know it all and they want to hear if there's something they should be arguing about, or they know they don't, but either way they're asking honest questions afterward. And not every trade show culture has that to say for it.
Great. Again, always great chatting with you, Dr. Vixie. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.